They all looked into the question. Let me quote to you Amnesty. Amnesty International, the world's leading human rights organization. It said, quote, contrary to repeated allegations by Israeli officials of the use of human shields, Amnesty International found no evidence that Hamas or other Palestinian fighters directed the movement of civilians to shield military objectives from attacks. Amnesty International found no evidence that Hamas or other armed groups forced residents to stay in or around buildings used by fighters, nor that fighters prevented residents from leaving buildings or areas which had been commandeered by militants. Zero. No evidence. Every single human rights organization reached the same conclusion, including the Goldstone Mission. No evidence, none at all, that Hamas was using the civilian population as human shields. Now here's the interesting test. How many of you are aware that every single major human rights organization investigated the question of the human shielding, and they all reached the same conclusion? Hamas had not been using civilian shields. How many of you know that? Look around you. About 5 people. In an interested audience, this is not a cross sample. It's an audience of people who already have an interest in the topic. They don't know. That's the problem. None of the basic facts are reported. The facts as have been found not by extremists, not by outliers, not by radicals, but the most mainstream human rights organizations. Now, it's not true that there was no human shielding. In fact, there was a lot of human shielding. There's no question about that. But it was Israel that was using Palestinians as human shields. How many of you are aware of that? That was slightly better. That's correct. What did Israel do in Gaza? Well, Goldstone, the Goldstone mission, it concluded as follows. It was a deliberately proportionate attack designed to punish, humiliate, and terrorize a civilian population. It wasn't a war. It was a terroristic assault on a defenseless civilian population. Now, some of you may say, okay, maybe Finkelstein has a point. Maybe. Maybe the historical record is not as I understood it. And maybe there's a lot in the human rights record that we don't know. Because we surely do know that something terrible happened in Gaza. For one thing, Gaza won't go away. It's already 10 or 11 months later, and it's still in the front pages. It won't go away. And maybe it won't go away because something terrible happened in Gaza. Something really terrible happened there. But how can you claim the conflict, its settlement, is not complicated? That doesn't make sense. That's not really believable, because if it weren't complicated, why is it going on so long? If what he's saying is true, it should have been over already. So you'll decide for yourself. Let's look at the record. Every year, the most representative political body in the world, the United Nations General Assembly, votes on how to resolve the conflict. There's a resolution called Peaceful Settlement of the Palestine Question every year. And most of you are familiar with its terms. It's called a two-state settlement, a full Israeli withdrawal from the territories they occupied in June 1967. Palestinians exercise their right to self-determination in the West Bank and Gaza, with East Jerusalem as their capital. and some sort of reasonable resolution of the refugee question. That's the two-state settlement. Now you decide whether it's controversial. You decide who are the extremists, who are the moderates, who are the outliers, who is the center. The vote on that settlement, 1997, the vote was 155-2. The whole world on one side, Israel and the United States on the other. The year 2002, the vote, 160-4. The whole world on one side, the United States, Israel, the Marshall Islands, and Micronesia on the other side. 2003, the vote, 160-6. The whole world on one side, Israel, the United States, the Marshall Islands, Micronesia, Palau, and Uganda on the other side. 2007, the vote, 161-7. The whole world on one side, Australia, the United States, Israel, the Marshall Islands, Micronesia, Nauru, and Palau on the other side. 2008, 164-7. The whole world on one side, Israel, the United States, Australia, the Marshall Islands, Micronesia, Nauru, and Palau on the other side. I know some of you are wondering, Nauru and Palau, what's that? Well, fair enough. Let's just say, without any disrespect to smaller countries, because I know we have the diversity counselor here who teaches respect for all peoples and all countries and all religions and all everything. So just as a factual matter, the combined populations of Nauru, Palau, we could throw in the Marshall Islands and Micronesia, their combined populations can fit in the empty seats in this room with space left over. So, that's the vote. Is it controversial? Is it close? Who are the extremists? Are the whole world the extremists? And Israel and the United States are the moderates? Or is it vice versa? The Arab states, 2002. The Arab League puts forth the same terms for resolving the conflict. What's the vote in the Arab League? 22-0. Then the Organization of the Islamic States, 57 nations, the Islamic States. 2002, all 57 endorsed the Arab League Initiative, which is the United Nations General Assembly Initiative. The whole world on one side, including Iran. Every year Iran votes with the General Assembly majority. Iran votes with the Confederation, the Organization of the Islamic Conference. Only the United States, Israel, and some South Sea islands. Some of you say, and I'll leave it at that because I know people want me to leave time for questions and answers. What about Hamas? You left them out. What is Hamas's record? Well, the most recent study done by the United States Institute of Peace from June 2009, it says, and I'm quoting them, Hamas has in practice moved well beyond its charter, has been carefully and consciously adjusting its political program for years, and has sent repeated signals that it is ready to begin a process of coexisting with Israel. Hamas is not the problem. They're ready to settle in the June 67 border. Some of you say, yeah, they're ready, but they're not willing to accept the legitimacy of the state of Israel. They're not willing to accept the legitimacy of Zionism. But under international law, they're not required. I notice looking around the room, there are people of South Asian descent, Pakistanis and Indians. In fact, Hamas's position on Israel is identical to what was Gandhi's position on Pakistan. Gandhi repeatedly said, I will never accept, believe in the idea of Pakistan. I will not, he said. He said, I will never accept that it was right